actually would have to be Nipsey's partnership. I think that something that was so great about him is how much he loves his community, and being able to do things that really benefited the community and be so involved are just so great. I mean, my favorite moment has always been.
Jordan, what's happening, man? How are we feeling?
I'm good, Sam. How you doing?
I'm fantastic, man. Very excited because we have a very special guest in this week's episode, Miss Sydney Levaton. She's the manager of entertainment marketing and partnerships at Puma Group. We all love Pumas. You're trying to look fly out here, you better have some Puma in your closet. And the reason that Puma is making its way into this marketplace is thanks to people like Sydney and the partnerships he's helping spearhead. One thing that I really love about whenever brands are partnering with artists is that they're becoming a patron of the arts. They're giving back to the community and giving artists an opportunity to create sometimes very fun and organic activations. I also really think that culture is very much a domino of other trends, especially for brands like fashion or other lifestyle related brands. So to be able to partner with awesome artists can be a really helpful way, not only to give an opportunity to the artist, but also to help grow the brand. What I particularly like about this episode is that we really, I know we've had some good chats on the side of with managers and agencies that help artists find brand deals, but this time the tables have turned and now we're really talking with somebody that's on the brand side. So really getting their perspective as to how to create organic activations, what they're looking for when identifying talent. So really enjoyed this episode. There were a couple lags, so bear with us if it gets a little laggy. But really grateful for the conversation we had and think you'll be able to glean a lot of powerful insights from it. What do you think, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite parts was just going through the specific campaigns that she's worked on. I think you guys will get a lot of insight into the process. She goes over what it was like to work with Nipsey Hussle before he passed. And I think a lot of people will, feel good about some of the activations that she was able to do with him, as well as get more insight on the creative process and just generally how these large scale campaigns come together. So I think if you're not too familiar with the brand world, I know we've only covered it a handful of times. Well, this one's a great episode to kind of cover what it's like at Puma. So yeah. And as always, if you guys haven't checked it out already, do want to encourage you guys to check out our Patreon. It gives you an opportunity to understand what guests we're about to interview, so you can submit questions that we can ask in the show. We help each other. If you have a challenge, if you have a question, Jordan and I are in there sharing insight based on our experience, and have some other awesome people from within the music industry that are also there to help. And everybody's got everybody else's back in there. So there's musicbusinesspodcast.com/community to learn more. But without any further ado, Miss Sydney Levaton. Sydney, what's up? How you doing today?
I'm good. How about you guys?
We are very well and very excited to have you on. For starters, we'd love to just kind of hear I know you've been working a lot in the kind of entertainment marketing space with a range of different brands, spending the last couple of years at Puma. But can you talk a little bit about how you got your first job that was kind of like in the music industry, if you will?
Yeah. So I actually went to school for event planning. I had no idea I would end up in entertainment at all. I think it was always a dream of mine to work in music, but ultimately event planning was kind of what I loved. And then once I graduated college, I moved back to LA. I was in school in Vegas, and I was really struggling to find a job for a long time. And out of the hundreds of applications I sent in, I got an interview with an agency called PMK which I now think is called Rogers and Cowan. And it was to work on their entertainment marketing and partnerships team. And it took months for me to get the job, but that is basically where I got my start. I worked on really large marketing partnerships for Samsung. That was my main client. So doing everything entertainment with them. And I was there for 2.5 years. And then I saw the listing at Puma go up. And I actually had a friend who I randomly had been talking to the day before I saw the listing, who told me that she had a friend who worked at Puma, and they had just caught up and they loved it. And she sent along my resume. And then I got the job a week later. I think I was the last person that they interviewed. I truly could not believe it, but I mean, it's truly a dream job. I love what I do, but yeah, I think it's just been kind of the right time, the right place so far. And I'm very grateful and very lucky for kind of everything that I have and have been through so far.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what are some, I know we talked about this a little bit before we started the episode, but what are some collaborations and campaigns you worked on recently?
Recently I co-managed the Lauren London partnership. And so about a year ago now, we did a really large announcement with her. It's a gorgeous video, which I'm not sure if both of you have seen. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's awesome.
Yeah, it makes me tear up every time I watch
it. I know. It's really good.
But yeah, that's a partnership that I work on, and we've been working on a lot of things that'll kind of roll out next year. And then I also co-manage the partnership with Cara Delevingne, and she has a ton of collaborations coming out next year, but we also launched her collab with Balmain last November, so almost a year ago. But yeah, those are the two that I'm working on right now. But before that, when I started at Puma 2.5 years ago, I was working on Nipsey Hussle's partnership and Yo Gotti and A Boogie. So I've really gotten kind of the full scope of men's and women's at Puma, which is great.
That's awesome. So when it comes to like identifying artists, I know a lot of people listening either manage artists themselves, or what are you looking for in the artists that you end up collaborating with? And then how do you really go about identifying who those artists will be?
I think that in the last, year and a half, 2 years since I've been at Puma, what I've noticed, and like for myself personally, when I am kind of building relationships with artists, is making sure that they actually like the brand. Because we want to make sure that whatever partnership we're building is organic. And the only way to do that is when an artist, or, when actor, actress, whatever it is, actually wears the brand in their real life. I don't need you posting it on Instagram every second, but to know that you're actually wearing the tracksuits or the shoes, or to be like, hey, I really like this new silhouette that came out. Like, that is super important to us. But if you're coming to me and you're saying, yeah, I really like Puma, but then you're out wearing every other brand under the sun and never actually wearing Puma, that's just not a good look. But then, in terms of identifying new artists, it's really completely relationship based. The entertainment marketing team is small. We're only 10 people. We're all based in Los Angeles, and the Puma headquarters are in Boston and in Germany. So anytime we are tasked from those larger marketing teams in Boston and Germany to find someone to sign, we kind of have to go to these teams and be like, hey, this is who this person is. This is what they have coming up. This is how many times they've worn Puma, all this stuff. So having that relationship directly with an artist or with their management team, and having that really good relationship is super important, because then you build this comfortability with each other where it's like, hey, don't tell anybody, but there's this album dropping. It might be good for your discussions or different things like that. But yeah, it's definitely all about just relationships and making sure people really like the brand. Yeah.
Right. Which kind of leads me to my next question, which is in terms of outreach and in terms of working with artists, what would you think the split is between artists that actually reach out to you, or management teams that reach out to you, or vice versa when you actually reach out to them?
I would say it's pretty 50-50. I myself do a lot of outreach. I think that's one of my favorite things about this job, is that I get to build relationships with people that I really am fans of. So if I see someone on Instagram, like, I will sometimes reach out to them directly and see if they'll answer, or also usually like their management's emails and their Instagram bio, or I might know someone who knows them. But there's been a lot of times where I know myself and other people on my team have gotten DMs from random artists who just want product, and they are always so excited because they might just be scrolling and see a shoe that they want. They might not want a deal. They might just want product, which is fine, and we love that too. But But
don't get mad at us when like 50 artists hit you up after this episode.
I am ready. But yeah, I think, yeah, it's really 50-50. Obviously with like the really, really huge celebrities, you don't oftentimes get them coming to you or their management teams coming to you wanting the deals, but like with smaller up and coming artists, which is honestly what Puma's focus has been, especially in the men's space, you get a lot of them reaching out, because I think that what's special, I mean, obviously I don't know how other brands partnerships are structured, so I can obviously only speak to Puma, but I think that what's so special about our partnerships is just like how much we want to build it off what artists are already working on. And like I said earlier, we want to make sure that it's organic. So if they're going to be venturing from music into being on a TV show, we want to be able to somehow integrate into that, whether it's them wearing it on the show or whatever other ways, throwing them a premiere party. So yeah, I think, yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's cool to have them reach out to you, but it's also cool to be able to reach out to artists you really love and be like, wear Puma. I hope you like it.
No, that's awesome and incredible. When it comes to like the different types of campaigns, I know you did mention like you'll try and oftentimes tie it into stuff they may already be working on. I know different types too. Sometimes maybe you said it's just kind of giving product. Other times it's definitely like much more integrated campaigns. Like I even recall I was at Complex Con a couple years ago and Metro Boomin dropped his like Metro Boomin shoe and I was like, oh my God, I need this. And I bought it.
Wait, how many years ago was that?
I think this had to be 4 years ago.
Yeah, I was at that Complex Con, bro. That was before we met. I was with Metro actually. That's hilarious.
Crazy. I'm never gonna forget it too, man. I had such like a great moment because he was coming to do an appearance and I was like up in front and I was like, I think he wants some more. And
you were up in front, bro. I was on the side of the stage. Crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I guess it was meant to be. But anyway.
Exactly. Well, now that Jordan and I had a little bonding moment, now we'll go back to the actual episode. Pardon our bromance.
What I'm trying to say is I love you, Sam. So I'm trying to say,
pause. But jokes aside. What are like the different types of collaborations? Do you have like a framework, or are there like clear kind of types that you evaluate these through?
Kind of both. A lot of times what happens is we get direction from the larger Puma marketing team. So there's different regions like North America, Latin America, Europe, you know, all those different types of regions who come to us with a specific need, usually to support a specific shoe coming out. And we work a year and a half in advance. So we know everything that's already happening and obviously in the next year and a half.
So what's happening? No, I'm kidding. You don't have to answer that. You get a pass.
So there's always like a very specific demographic that we are going after with a shoe, or we just know we'll like a shoe. And so we want to make sure that whoever is supporting the shoe is going to draw in that type of crowd or that consumer. And so that's usually how we structure it. A lot of times there's also different accounts like a Foot Locker or a Shoe Palace or anything, or Journeys, who it's very similar, where they're like, hey, we know you guys are dropping this shoe. We want to work with you to have a specific campaign and sign a specific person to support this. So that's how it works. But then there's other times where, like with Cara, that's a good example. She wanted to do a collaboration with a big fashion house, and she had a relationship already with Balmain. And she's like, this is who I want to do the collaboration with. And she was super hands-on. Her and Olivier, who is the creative director at Balmain, basically created the entire line. They had multiple calls figuring out fabrics and what the design of the fabrics look like and what the shoes look like and everything. So it does vary. I mean, the longer someone is signed with Puma and the better relationship there is, more likely the chance that they're going to eventually get their own shoe and a line similar to Cara. I mean, Cara's been with Puma for like 4 years now, I think. So it was a long time coming. But a lot of times it is just kind of like we know what shoe was coming out and we know we need someone to support that shoe. So let's sign someone who fits the style of the shoe and also fits the consumer base that we're trying to reach out to.
Yeah.
Right. So kind of piggybacking off that, one, what does a successful partnership look like over time? Like you just said with Cara, you guys have been working together for 4 years. What kind of enables that longevity? And then two, how do you identify a successful campaign once you've done it? So, the product is out, the artist has endorsed it in whatever medium you guys found appropriate. How do you identify if it's actually been done successfully and that it actually struck a chord with the consumer base?
I think we base it off of a lot of times on conversation on social media. Like that's obviously not the only factor. There are a lot of factors that, to be completely honest, I don't even know about, that there are people high up at Puma that are dealing with it. But I know for us to be able to see someone post a social post, let's say on Instagram or Twitter or whatever it is, wearing Puma, and in the comments it's like, oh, that shoe's super dope, I'm gonna go onto Puma.com right now and buy that. I personally saw that a lot with Dreezy, actually. Anytime she would post in Puma, she posted all the time. I mean, she would wear it on her Instagram stories, in her feed, everything. And every time in the comments, you would see almost all her comments being like, those shoes are really cool, I'm going to buy them right now, or I just bought those shoes. And I think for us, that is really great to see that people are seeing it on someone, and we were successful in our job in finding someone who actually reached out to people that we wanted to, or just consumers, and got them to buy the product. But I also think in terms of success of a partnership, it's also having someone continuously wear Puma for a long time and start posting when we don't maybe ask them to, and is wearing it in music videos and all this stuff. And like they're always going to ask for money for like product placement and stuff, but I think that when they also are so willing and open to do it on their own because they really love the brand and they value the relationship they've built with the brand, I think that to us that's success too. And I think also when they bring us opportunities, when they are like, hey, I'm bringing up the music video thing again, but hey, I'm shooting this music video, can you guys do something? Or I want to do this content series following me along on tour, can you guys partner with me on that? I think that that's also really great for us because it lends visibility to the brand, and it also lends visibility to the relationship of the brand and the artist. So that's also really great for us.
Awesome.
Amazing. When it comes to on the artist side of kind of creating deals that work well on both sides, like what things do you think artists really need to be conscious of when entertaining brand deals?
I think there's always just going to be annoying things you have to do because you are working with a brand. There's a lot of artists who don't always like having to do social posts or show up to do an appearance or something like that, but it is just something that kind of comes along with working with a brand and with a really huge corporation. With smaller brands, maybe it's not as strict, but for us, there's very clear-cut things that we know we like our partners to do. And then there's always the wiggle room, and we always try and, like I said, work with the artist or entertainer to make sure that we're also doing things that fulfill them and make them happy, so that it doesn't seem like such a corporate deal. But yeah, there's always going to be things that there's always going to be deal points that you have to fulfill that you might not be happy about as an artist, but it's just kind of part of business. And I think that in every single part of entertainment, in life, actually, there's always going to be things you don't want to do, but you have to do, just to kind of make money, make people happy, build relationships. And it's just kind of one little thing to kind of have to deal with, but then also know that you are giving yourself a really good reputation with the brand if you do everything that they want you to do, because if you make them happy, they're going to want to make you happy and help you out when you come to them with different opportunities.
Right. Yeah. When I worked at a management company, it was weird. Specifically for Instagram posts, my clients were like, "Oh no, I don't want to do that."
Yeah.
It was like
Yeah.
it could be a brand that they use, a brand that they like, but it was like if you can get on that if you can get a post, they know
Yeah.
that engagement is legitimate. So it's like,
Yeah.
man, nah, I don't want to do it. But it's I would say from a brand side too, that's also like part of working with artists. Like I don't know why Instagram posts specifically is artists don't want to do it.
I
But
know.
I've run into a lot of trouble with that. But I think that's it kind of goes back to what you're saying about making partnerships organic. I think that if an artist is working with a brand that they wear and post, regularly that they're wearing regardless, then that post shouldn't be too
Yeah.
too
Easy.
intrusive. But
Yeah.
yeah, but if it's if they're working with a brand that they don't actually support, then yeah, I
Yeah.
wouldn't want to post about it either,
Yeah.
But that's the whole point. You have to find partnerships that are true to you and your brand that you're okay with promoting.
Yeah.
That's kind of the whole point.
And
So.
I think that we also try and be understanding that obviously everyone has an aesthetic to what their
Right.
Instagram looks like. We don't ever want someone to post something that doesn't look like something they would post, because then it looks like you're paying someone to post
Right.
something, and that's not what we want. That's not what any brand or artist wants. So yeah, I think that also being able to, if we ever get pushback, and when we do get pushback, it's kind of like, okay, so how can we work together to make this work? Like, what type of photo
Right.
are you cool with posting? Like, is it you holding the shoe? Is it you, what is it? And we've been able to find a lot of success when we kind of frame it that way if we get pushback. But yeah, it is, for some reason, that's always the difficult one. But I get it
Yeah.
too. Like, I look at my Instagram sometimes and like, I don't have any sort of aesthetic, but I'm like, maybe I don't want to post that photo today. Does it work? And like, literally to my 0 followers.
Right.
Like, nobody cares,
Right.
But.
Yeah. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and she said she sends one of her best friends 2 photos that look almost identical, and then asks which ones to post. So if we do that, it makes sense for artists to do that as well. Speaking of like deliverables and just artists and campaigns and what those look like, how do the deliverables and goals kind of shift between artists? Obviously, some of the deliverables are going to be the same, like social posts are probably pretty standard, but how can they differ between artists? And then you said a little earlier, someone, if Puma's putting out a shoe and you want to put something, you want to bring someone on board, what do those goals look like between artists? And I guess, how do you formulate those?
I think for that, it really is sort of in the real get information on what is happening in an artist's career in the next, if they can plan a year and a half out, which most of them have some framework of what that looks like, that helps us to structure a deal, because we can then, if we know an artist is dropping an album in a year and they will still be signed with Puma, then it is to our benefit also, because there's something that we can do with them within that time frame. And I think we've been pretty lucky, because a lot of times these albums kind of come out at the same time. I mean, we always have shoes dropping, but at the same time that major shoes are dropping. So it really helps, because there's always ways to kind of amplify that. So yeah, I mean, it really is just kind of like in the relationship and that we're building with these artists, when we kind of get the information from their management teams, hearing what they have going on. I mean, that kind of shifts what kind of goes into a deal. In terms of what the goals are, I think that they're always the same. It's really just getting visibility for the brand. And I mean, like I've said, just creating an organic partnership and one that's mutually beneficial. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just kind of, the goals are pretty standard.
Yeah,
right.
For sure. What have been some of like the favorite campaigns you've worked on? I know you mentioned a couple different artists and whatnot, but like, if you could just talk us through like some of your favorite campaigns, why you think they were effective, and where you really put your focus to make them effective, that'd be awesome.
I also would love to hear about the Nipsey Hussle campaign / now Lauren Lennon campaign, because Nipsey's like one of my favorite artists of all
Yeah.
time, and that campaign actually struck a serious chord with me. So hearing about that too at some point would be awesome.
I think Kara's collab with Balmain was really cool for me because I mean, it was so over the top. I mean, obviously, Balmain is a huge fashion house. Like they are in the luxury brands. But we actually went to Warsaw for 5 days to film this campaign video, and it was 2 days, very long hours. I mean, beautiful, beautiful sets and dance scenes and like acting, and the outfits were amazing. I mean, it was so cool to sit there and just be able to watch everything creatively come to life after months and months and months of planning. Just seeing things on a storyboard, to be able to see it in real life was incredible. I am just such a visual person, so to be able to sit there and like see the lights and like the dance scene happening 500 times in front of me, but nonetheless still amazing. Like, it was really great. The other one actually would have to be Nipsey's partnership. I think that something that was so great about him is how much he loves his community, and being able to do things that really benefited the community and be so involved are just so great. I mean, my favorite moment has always been and will forever be, we redid a basketball court at an elementary school that was right near his grandma's house. And that came together. I was so stressed out for like 3 weeks. It came together so fast. Like, I don't know how we pulled it off. There were so many permits we had to get that I didn't know we had to get because you're working with an elementary school and like minors. And then obviously you're like wanting to bring a camera crew, but you have to get approval from parents, and then all these different things. And I knew, and like the basketball court was just falling apart. The hoops were coming off. Like nobody had fixed it for years and years and years. And the weather had completely ruined the basketball court. And I remember like the day I showed up to do the reveal, I was like, I am going to cry. Like, I need to wear waterproof mascara. Like, I know myself. And we're sitting there and the kids were so excited. They had all made, oh my God, they made the cutest handmade signs with, I mean, they were all so young, so none of them can really like write yet. And it was so cute. And they were like handing them to Nipsey, and Nipsey was having so much fun and just like playing basketball with some of them. And it was so cute. And I think also another one of my favorite moments is when we went with Nipsey and G-Eazy to Vegas. It was the launch of our first basketball shoe. This is, I don't even know how long ago, 2 years now, maybe. And this also came together very last minute. We had, I think the Puma jet had the Puma private jet had just kind of like come into existence. And we basically came up with this plan to go to Vegas, buy out all of the basketball shoes on release day from the Puma store that was in Vegas. And also I think a Foot Locker or Shoe Palace that was across the way. And we donated them to a couple different high schools in Vegas. And I mean, this was special to me for a couple reasons, because I went to college in Vegas, and Vegas is like a second home to me. I love it there. Like, I have so many friends who are still there, and also just to be able to give all these kids basketball shoes. And I remember when I was talking to some of the coaches of the high school, they're like, you don't understand how much this means. Like, a lot of these kids can't afford basketball shoes. Like, they haven't been able to afford them for a really, really long time. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Vegas is not, it's not, the entire area surrounding the Strip is not a great area. There's a lot of people, like, the Strip makes everything seem very grand and very rich in Vegas, but that is not the case. And so to be able to donate these shoes, I mean, these kids were so excited. They had no idea what was happening. They basically we interrupted their practice, walked in, and had them all gather in the middle of a basketball court, and they were so confused. And then all of a sudden, Nipsey and G-Eazy walked in, and they were freaking out, like losing their minds. We were like, I felt like Oprah. We were just like throwing the shoes to them, and they were so excited. And that was amazing. And then the other school we wanted to go to, it ended up, there was something that happened. We ended up not being able to go. So we went to a local community center where there were a bunch of kids playing, and Nipsey and G-Eazy were playing basketball, and their bodyguards jumped in and played basketball. And then at one point, Nipsey started handing out like $100 bills to the kids, I think. Maybe it wasn't $100, but it was something like that. But I mean,
like,
it's just like moments like that. We're like, oh, I thought I was just coming to after school care, and I'm not going to leave them with $100. But yeah, that was just such a fun whirlwind trip. And Nipsey's grandma came, and she was having the best time just like watching and seeing everything that was happening. But it was, it was super fun. But yeah, those are some of my most fond memories thus far, and I'm sure I will build many, many more.
So, speaking of the Nipsey campaign with the basketball court and what you guys did in Vegas, generally how much of the creative comes from the artist? Because it's obviously very close. That all sounds like Nipsey, right? Like, how much of it comes from the artist and how much of it comes from Puma, and how much of it just comes with like being in a room collaborating? I'm more so just wondering, because those are both obviously very awesome, great ideas that you guys executed upon. So what is the creative process kind of like to come up with those ideas?
So when it's a campaign where it is a Puma shoe that an artist is supporting, that creative is concepted by Puma. So there's not much creative direction that an artist can give, besides like if they have a specific photographer that they like. A lot of times we'll be like, okay, totally cool. I mean, we get that. If it is a co-branded collection like Cara and Balmain, that is very hands-on in the creative. She knew pretty much exactly what she wanted the campaign to look like, what elements she wanted to incorporate in. So she was super involved with different events like the ones with Nipsey. That came from him, and that is not uncommon with a lot of what happens with our partners. We generally know what they are interested in, and so we try and build and propose ideas that we think that they'll like. And when we propose it, if they're like, oh, this is almost there, but this element needs to be added in, then we're usually pretty easygoing about it. So it really varies, but I mean, we try and get as much creative input as we possibly can from the partners.
Awesome. Cool.
Awesome.
So I guess, I'll let you ask the next one, Sam. I'll wrap up with that last one.
Zoom lag out here today.
Yeah.
With that said, when it comes to like for artists, I mean, some of like our listeners might be like developing and may not be at the point where they'll necessarily get like their own true or like crazy collab, but curious as to like how clean an artist's profile needs to be in order for it to be okay for you to collaborate with them. Like, is that something that's like super top of mind? Is something you think artists should really make sure they're conscious about?
Yes and no. I mean, obviously we don't want anything that is very problematic and doesn't look good when working with a brand, but we also, to some degree, have to take things with a grain of salt because the media is crazy and sometimes blows things out of proportion. So we, I think, try and do our research as much as possible too before we sign someone, and make sure we know who we're working with. And I think it's definitely something to be conscious of, but also this day and age, I feel like everyone kind of understands what they're getting into with some artists. So it's not a massive concern, but definitely something to still think about.
And I would imagine that, you can tell what's appropriate pretty easily, and what isn't, just by their entire brand. It wouldn't be like one tweet necessarily that would be like, oh man, we can't work with that person because they tweeted that one thing.
Totally.
I would assume there's multiple flags that maybe you shouldn't be working with this artist before you even get to the point of like, or even if you ever do like reading their tweets or what have you. So
Of course.
Yeah. So I guess like the last, as we wrap up here, want to, take out the elephant in the room, which is the pandemic. So how have partnerships kind of changed in the landscape from your perspective, in the last 6 to 7 months since the pandemic has kind of upended daily life?
It has been very interesting. I I know for myself personally, it took me a while. I mean, actually, I think for most of the country to or the world, to realize that this was not going to be over in 3 weeks or a
Right.
month. And this is something that we're probably going to be dealing with for a very long time. And to kind of shift my mind frame that now with partnerships, I have to think of activations and ways to work with them so differently, because
Hmm.
normally we would be doing in-person event. I mean, like most everywhere, we'd be doing in-person
Right.
events, or we'd be doing,
Right.
a lot more photo shoots and productions. And now we've had to kind of frame everything. And for a minute, like most brands, we kind of paused and we're like, let's take a minute, let's regroup, let's figure out how to do this, but also make sure that we're supporting local communities and that we're not just kind of like going back to normal. But I think we're putting now a lot, we're really opening up the discussion with our partners to see what they're
Hmm.
comfortable with, because it's also forced a lot of artists and creatives to think differently about their
Right.
careers too, and how they might be. And so a lot of them have really interesting ideas of what it is that they want to do. And we are open to it, because I think that there's only I mean, nobody's really doing IG lives anymore, but I think that there's only so many IG lives you can watch,
Right.
and like so many virtual concerts you can watch.
Right.
And you kind of at this point always have to switch it up every couple months, and just staying ahead of it. And a lot of that comes from the partners that we work with, because they know what it is that they like, they know what they're comfortable doing, and they know their fan base the best. So they can really direct us and tell us what to do. And I also think when it comes to photo shoots, because a lot of people aren't really comfortable with these large crews being on set yet, we've also looked to some of our partners to do photo shoots at
Hmm.
home and be like, hey, are you okay if we send you this product? Like, can you take some photos? And we can like kind of go from there. And a lot of them have been super into it, because it's given them complete creative control to do whatever it is that they want. And we have no restrictions. Like, we are like, you go for it, go wild, include whatever you want.
Right.
And it's been cool to see the outcome of that. And I think that that's something that we'll start to probably do more of in the next, I don't even know, 6 months, however much longer this lasts. But yeah, it's been an interesting process and learning curve, and I think it continues to be. But I think that we now have a better hold of it, which is comforting.
Do you think there's anything that'll stick? So like, I know you're changing a lot of processes right now in the way that you roll out campaigns and construct campaigns, but do you think even after things start to return back to normal, there'll be things that you learned during the campaign, or processes that you've built during the campaign or during the pandemic that will stick?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. I hope that we continue to engage with our partners this
Hmm.
much and really give them a lot of creative control. But I think that it'll be interesting as their careers kind of go back to normal too, and they can start touring again and doing all these things, what that looks like. But I mean, I think for everybody, the message has kind of been like, you
Right.
never know what's going to
Right.
happen. Tomorrow you could wake up and who knows, the murder hornets could be back.
Wow,
So
that was such a
it's
scare earlier
it's just kind of like, yeah,
summer.
I
Yeah.
mean, but I think it's really just going with the flow, not having to be so rigid, and just like allowing things to happen as they do. I mean, that's how I live my life, but I really hope that from a corporate structure, that's also like, we can continue this and understand that things change, things happen, and just kind of keep going with it.
Awesome.
I love it. And it's a perfect note to end on. And I think super grateful to have had you on the show and all the incredible work you're doing. I think always been a fan of Puma myself, and I think it's largely because a lot of the partnerships and ways in which you guys are able to kind of support and act as a patron for incredible artists and really foster a cultural understanding and adoption. So thank you, Sydney.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Man, that was a great episode. I really enjoyed learning about her perspective as far as like how they go about identifying talent, what they look for in talent, how they try and leverage the artist's creative vision so that way they can create really organic collaborations and activations. I know it gets so easy to make things feel forced when doing brand partnerships, but I think Puma has done an incredible job at actually partnering with awesome artists and giving them the creativity to contribute to the campaign, so it ends up feeling very organic. What did you think, Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was super awesome that she just kind of talked about what actually starting and finishing a campaign looks like, and how I didn't realize the breadth of what the campaigns could be. Obviously, endorsements for shoe deals and that sort of thing makes sense, but what she was able to do with Nipsey and Lauren London kind of surpassed that, and they, they're much larger than that. So it was super cool to hear about the campaigns that we don't necessarily think of when we think of endorsement deals and sponsorships and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, huge shout out to Sydney, to Puma. Really excited and grateful for you as well for listening to this episode. But that's it for this week. We'll be back next week and appreciate you so much. Until then,
guys.
Peace.